as well as planets Pelican 3 and Pelican 4 payloads. Now we still have 5 more payload deployments coming up in quick succession, and those will be following the third burn of the MVAC engine. Now, although this third burn will be brief, keep an eye on the telemetry in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Good burn 3.
Now with confirmation of the second engine cutoff 3, coming up next will be our final payload deployments of the mission. Again, we have 5 more deployments today, and those will begin in just about 2 minutes. The first payload to deploy in this final batch will be Acadia 6. ExoLaunch has manifested Acadia 6 for Capella Space, launching into sun-synchronous orbit. This satellite will expand Capella's Acadia series with enhanced imaging and revisit rates, strengthening global synthetic aperture radar coverage. The second to deploy will be Firefly 1. ExoLaunch has manifested this mission 3 Firefly payloads for its customer Pixel. Pixel is building a constellation of hyperspectral imaging satellites to create a health monitor for our planet. With 3 Fireflies already in orbit, today's 3 new additions will expand the constellation's reach, providing vital insights for agriculture, mining, environmental monitoring, and beyond. After Firefly 1, the next deployment will be Leap 1 for Druva Space. As part of Druva's Launching Expeditions for Aspiring Payloads, LEAP initiative, this hosted payload mission carries 2 Australian payloads to orbit, one demonstrating advanced edge computing in space, and the other deploying a next-generation hyperspectral imager for Earth observation. After the final 2 payloads to deploy, today will be Firefly 2 and Firefly 3, which ExoLaunch has manifested for its customer Pixel. Right now, we are standing by for the first deployment of this final batch, which again will be Acadia 6. We should be about 15 seconds or so away from that first deployment. Keep an eye on the view you have there on screen.
First Pixel Firefly deploy confirmed. Druva Space Leap 1 separation confirmed. Acadia 6 separation confirmed. Second Pixel Firefly separation confirmed. Third pixel Firefly separation confirmed. We have confirmation of all payloads separations.
I often put my hands over the spots on my face. With Eucerin, I have nothing to hide.
Try Thiamadol, the most effective anti-spot ingredient with Eucerin, now in India.
మీకు ఇల్లు ఊడవడం అంటే బోరింగా?
Of course.
మీకు కావాలి ఫెవిక్విక్ యొక్క కొత్త AI ప్యాక్.
ఫెవిక్విక్? AI?
అవును అల్లుడా, ఫెవిక్విక్ ఇప్పుడు క్విక్ జీపీటీ శక్తితో ai-pack.feviquick.in కి వెళ్ళు. మొదటి ఐటెంని ఆలోచించు, రెండో ఐటెం ఆలోచించు, తర్వాత రెండింటిని అతికించాయి. మరో మూడో ఐటెం ఎలా అంటే బ్రూమ్ బాక్స్. క్షణాల్లో అతికించు, కళా నైపుణ్యం చూపించు. ఇది ఒక వర్చువల్ ప్యాక్. అసలైన ప్యాక్ దుకాణంలో లభిస్తుంది.
Window for that test flight opens at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we'll have live coverage starting about half an hour before liftoff. That will do it for us here at SpaceX. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. To put this in perspective, that's fast enough to lap the Earth in about 90 minutes, or fly from New York to here in Los Angeles in under 10 minutes, about 7 times faster than the fastest airplane. After stage separation, today's booster will be landing back at Vandenberg Space Force Base at Landing Zone 4. This particular booster will be returning to Earth for its 27th time. The second stage will take over from there, powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine known as the MVAC. With its extended nozzle and optimized design, the MVAC drives maximum performance in the vacuum of space. Today, we'll ignite that engine 3 times before deploying the final payload into orbit. Topping it all off is the payload fairing, a 17-foot wide carbon composite shell that protects the payload during the uphill trip through the atmosphere. About 3 minutes into flight, both halves of the fairing will separate and parachute back to Earth. Our fairing halves have seen multiple flights. One is flying for its 15th time today and the other for its 9th. If recovery goes to plan, the fairings will be pulled from the ocean and prepped to fly again. Here's a photo of today's payload being encapsulated just a few days ago. So much of what makes Falcon 9 remarkable happens in flight, from stages separating, the first stage landing itself back on land or a drone ship in the middle of the ocean, fairings parachuting back, all to get ready for another flight to space. And getting to space is the first step in building our multi-planetary future. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, on board today's shared mission is OHB Italia's NAOS spacecraft, as well as 7 rideshare payloads for ExoLaunch, Planet, and Druva Space. Shared missions are possible when additional performance is available on a mission, providing even more opportunities for spacecraft to get to orbit. To date, SpaceX has launched over 30 missions like today's with rideshare payloads on board. We've also launched more than 1,400 payloads to orbit across our dedicated rideshare and shared launch opportunities. To join an upcoming rideshare mission, visit spacex.com/rideshare. Now, at the T-9-minute mark, the launch vehicle and spacecraft are in good health and ready for launch. The Falcon 9 team reported on console at the T-2 hour and 15-minute mark to begin their final checks of the launch vehicle and ground systems. Final checkout of the flight termination system was performed at T-1 hour and 45 minutes. The chief engineer conducted a technical readiness poll just before T-1 hour. The Falcon 9 team completed data review of the first and second stage propellant checkouts, as well as avionics and guidance, navigation, and control at the T-1 hour mark. At that technical readiness poll, there were no issues. Most recently, the team completed the poll at T-38 minutes to proceed with propellant load and launch. The SpaceX team at Vandenberg Space Force Base began loading propellant on time at T-35 minutes when the launch auto sequence begins. We are loading 2 propellants on the Falcon 9 vehicle, a fuel and an oxidizer. For Falcon 9, our fuel is a refined form of kerosene known as RP1, and to burn that fuel, we need a source of oxygen called the oxidizer. Most burning on Earth uses oxygen, which makes up about 21% of the air that you breathe. However, in space, there is no atmosphere to provide oxygen or other oxygen-bearing molecules, so rockets need to carry their own. Falcon 9's oxidizer is a super-chilled liquid oxygen called densified LOX. The liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point to increase its density, allowing us to load more into the first and second stage LOX tanks. Currently, fuel loading is complete on the second stage, and it is continuing on the first stage until about the T-minus 6 minute mark, when it will finish up. Liquid oxygen is loading onto both the first and second stages right now.
Engine chill.
At liftoff, Falcon 9's 2 stages combined will hold over 1.1 million pounds of propellant. Now, we started the day with a 0% probability of violating launch weather constraints, and right now we are still experiencing favorable launch conditions. Now, coming up next in the countdown, the transporter erector, or TE, will begin to retract away from Falcon 9. That's the large trussed structure you see standing next to the rocket.
Stage 1 RP1 load is complete.
So RP1 loading for the first stage is wrapped up, which completes the fuel side of the propellant equation for the booster. Now first, the clamps around the second stage will open, and then the TE will pivot back, slowly swinging away from the rocket. It will reach full recline by the T-minus 3 minute and 40 second mark. You may also hear our team refer to this as the strong back, which is the same structure but a different name. The TE does a lot more than lean. It rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and it stays connected through the final seconds. It also provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the rocket. These clamps you can see at the top help stabilize the second stage during fueling. They also prevent movement during high winds. Once they open, the rocket will be fully free at the top. So we're still about a minute out from those clamps opening. And right now, both stages are nearly fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of propellant. Again, that includes RP1, refined kerosene, and liquid oxygen chilled below
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
Here we're preparing for the retraction of the TE. Now, propellant loading again wraps up in 2 steps. So the first stage finishes around T-minus 3 minutes, and the second stage just about 1 minute later. On your screen, you can see we have beautiful weather conditions.
Strong back retract has started.
Clear skies for today. And if you watch closely, you'll be able to see the clamp arms opening up around that second stage and the strong back retracting. At this point, you may have also noticed those white clouds around the vehicle, and that's condensation. As the liquid oxygen is warming up inside the tank, some of it boils off, and we vent it overboard to maintain pressure in our tanks. When that vented oxygen hits the warmer outside air, it instantly condenses into clouds. Now, the tanks are also pressurized using helium, and that helium is chilled too, so it stays compatible with our cryogenic plumbing. During flight, that pressurization helps force propellant into the engines as the tanks empty. There's a great view here of the strong back retracting away from Falcon 9. Now, coming up next, we'll shortly be hearing confirmation of Stage 1 LOX loading completion.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Right on time. And tracking next in our countdown, at the T-minus 60 second mark, Falcon 9 will enter startup. At that point, the rocket's onboard flight computers will take over, and from there, the countdown is fully autonomous. just inside the T-minus 2 second mark, the 9 Merlin 1D engines will ignite. Once they're at full power, Falcon 9 will lift off the pad and begin its climb to orbit. As of right now, the satellite remains healthy and the rocket is tracking no issues. Weather is green and the range is clear to support our scheduled liftoff at 11:53 a.m. Pacific time.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With the completion of Stage 2 LOX load, the second stage is fully loaded. Now shortly here, you'll see a white cloud venting from the TE LOX line.
Ground gas closeout.
Gas closeout here refers to venting of the gaseous systems, like topping off the tanks and then sealing vents to maintain pressure. At T-minus 1 minute, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and stages 1 and 2 will begin pressurizing for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Finally, we'll be awaiting the launch go pull from our launch director, confirming all systems are ready.
LD is go for launch.
And there we heard our launch director. Falcon 9 is go for launch, so let's sit back and listen in to the final countdown.
T-minus 3 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go, take it, go. Vehicle's pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4E, and in just a moment we'll throttle the engines down in preparation for max Q, a period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is a critical moment during flight because the combined stresses
Telemetry nominal.
caused by Falcon 9 accelerating through the atmosphere and the ambient static pressure are at their greatest.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
The rocket has just passed through max Q, again where it experiences the greatest mechanical stress during flight. You can track our progress to orbit by watching
And
the
back chill.
left corner of your display showing first stage, velocity, and altitude. Now, we have several events coming up in quick succession, and we should hear these all called out by mission control, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO, then stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start, and the start of boost back burn. Main engine cutoff is where we shut down all 9 Merlin 1D engines
Trajectory nominal.
on the first stage. Stage separation is when the first and second stages of Falcon 9 separate from one another. Stage 1 flip is when the booster uses its nitrogen gas thrusters to flip the booster around. And depending on the mission, it will perform a fast or slow flip. Today will be a fast flip, returning to the landing site on land. Second engine start will relight the MVAC engine, and a few seconds later, the boost back burn will begin as the booster heads towards landing zone at Vandenberg.
Main engine cutoff. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC ignition. Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there we heard the callouts for a successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, and second engine start 1, as well as the start of boost back burn. We're now waiting for fairing deployment on the second stage. Oh.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Great views here on your screen, and confirmation of fairing separation. Now the boost back burn is ongoing and we expect shutdown shortly here.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown. Both trajectories are nominal.
Great confirmation of boost back burn shutdown, which concludes the first of 3 burns that the first stage will perform on its way back to Vandenberg. You can see the MVAC engine still powering our second stage to its target orbit. Now, at T plus about 4 minutes into today's mission, the next major milestone coming up will be at the T plus 6 minute and 22 second mark, where you should see the first stage's entry burn on your screen. To start that entry burn, we will relight 3 of the M1D engines on the first stage, starting with the center engine, known as E9, followed shortly by E1 and E5. This is similar to pumping the brakes to slow the vehicle down as it passes back into Earth's atmosphere. We need to do this to slow down re-entry and reduce re-entry forces, which helps us recover and reuse the first stage. During that entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but the vehicle will still be moving really fast. This causes it to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume.
Both trajectories remain nominal.
Now this will deposit a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface, and that's why our flight-proven vehicles look the way they do. The soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses. With each flight, it builds up a little bit more on the outside of the vehicle. Now we're still over a minute away from the beginning of that entry burn. You can keep an eye on the first and second stage telemetry on the bottom of your screen. Second stage is still increasing speed and heading to its desired orbit. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, enabling more investments in critical space infrastructure. The Falcon 9 stage performing today's mission is performing this entry burn for the 27th time tonight. Now this entry burn is slotted to last around 21 seconds, and again we are slowing the vehicle down in preparation for final burn and landing.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there's the call out for entry burn shutdown, which is the completion of the Falcon 9 first stage entry burn. Coming up next will be the landing burn, which will start in less than 1 minute. Now, the Merlin engines on the Falcon first stage are optimized for sea level and achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. The landing burn will be the final burn of the Falcon 9 booster.
Stage 1 transonic.
And it's used to reduce the remaining speed of the vehicle for a gentle and precise landing.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 FTS have saved. Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing burn has begun on the Falcon 9 first stage. This is the final burn the booster will perform before touching down.
Landing light deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you saw and heard the call out for successful landing of our Falcon 9 rocket. Again, this was the 27th launch and landing for this first stage. Now, coming up next, we'll be hearing a call out for second engine cutoff 1, or SECO 1, which will be the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine. After that, we'll be looking for confirmation of good orbital insertion.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Again, we are awaiting second engine cutoff and confirmation
MVAC shutdown.
of good orbital insertion.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And we have confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. Now, in less than 2 minutes, we should see our first payload deployments of the mission. The first payload is our primary payload for this mission, NAOS, and that will be followed by 2 payloads for Planet, Pelican 3 and Pelican 4. NAOS was developed by OHB Italia for Luxembourg Defense. The satellite is equipped with a state-of-the-art high-resolution optical camera, enabling detailed Earth imagery to support Luxembourg's institutional, environmental, and security applications. NAOS will provide high-definition images from low Earth orbit, allowing the Luxembourg government to obtain key satellite data for public administration, land monitoring, and national resilience objectives. Planet is a leading provider of daily data and insights around Earth and is launching 2 additional high-resolution AI-enabled Pelican satellites. Equipped with NVIDIA Jetson AI on board, these satellites will continue to expand Planet's capabilities to provide rapid, on-demand imagery to their customers across a range of industries, from defense and intelligence to agriculture and disaster response. Now, at this time, we are awaiting the first of the 3 deployments in this group, which will be our primary payload for today, NAOS.
शेविंग से जलन और परेशानी और नहीं मेरे जिलेट मार्क 3 के 3 फेशियल अडैप्टिव ब्लेड्स दे इतना कंफर्टेबल शेव जो लगे हवा से भी हल्का जिलेट मार्क 3 स्मूथेस्ट एंड मोस्ट कंफर्टेबल शेव
होटल डन स्ट्रेस्ड आउट फ्लाइट्स अगोड़ा पे जाओ अमेजिंग प्राइसेस पाओ
Falcon 4 separation confirmed.
Great confirmation of successful separation for the NAOS, Pelican 3, and Pelican 4 payloads. Now, our mission is not over yet. We have more payloads to deploy, but first, the second stage is embarking on a coast phase, and that will last about 40 minutes before the MVAC engine relights for a second time, also known as SES-2, and this will be at about T plus 53 minutes and 3 seconds. So we're going to take a pause and leave you with some space jams, and we'll see you back here just after T plus 50 minutes for second engine start 2.
right on time.
भारत कनेक्ट 700 से ज्यादा एप्स पे बिल पेमेंट्स पॉसिबल बनाते हैं, जैसे अभी किया। वाओ! आप हमें जानते नहीं पर मानते जरूर हैं। हम हैं भारत कनेक्ट।
burst of colors. Feels like a billion rainbows in my hand.
सारे प्रोटीन्स हाई क्वालिटी नहीं होते। गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड परफॉर्मेंस के लिए चाहिए ऑप्टिमम न्यूट्रिशन गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड 100% वे। इसका मेन इंग्रेडिएंट है वे प्रोटीन आइसोलेट। एक्सेस कार्ब्स, फैट्स और लैक्टोज को वे प्रोटीन से आइसोलेट किया जाता है, इसलिए होता है फास्टर एब्जॉर्प्शन और मसल रिकवरी। गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड परफॉर्मेंस के लिए ऑप्टिमम न्यूट्रिशन।
Welcome back to our live launch coverage of the NAOS mission. So far today, we had an on-time liftoff at 11:53 a.m. Pacific Time from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We also had a successful first stage landing at Landing Zone 4. The second stage completed its first burn about 9.5 minutes after launch, placing the vehicle and spacecraft into the desired orbit. And we also saw our first payload deployments. Now coming up next, we are approaching the second burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage. This will be brief and it will last just about 3 seconds, so we're listening in for that call out in the next few minutes. Now, if you are just joining us, so far in today's mission, we have successfully deployed our first group of payloads. This includes NAOS, the National Advanced Optical System Satellite, on behalf of our customer OHB Italia. NAOS is a very high-resolution optical satellite system, which was developed by OHB Italia for Luxembourg's defense. We have also had successful deployments of planets Pelican 3 and Pelican 4 payloads. Now coming up in the remainder of today's mission will be 5 more deployments shortly after the T+1 hour mark. This will include EXO launches manifested Acadia 6 for Capella Space and Firefly 1, 2, and 3 for Pixel, as well as the Leap 1 payload for Dhruva Space. Now we're expecting the second engine start to be within the next minute. And there you saw that second engine start too, just a brief burn, about 3 seconds. So with the second stage engine cutoff, we're going to take another quick break and we'll return for that third start of the second stage engine and our final payload deployments of the mission. We'll be back around the T+1 hour 5 minute mark, and we'll see you soon.